Being here. Obviously today's program is about the endowment, which is, I can only imagine what brings everybody out. So again, good to see everybody. I'm not going to talk long. I'm just going to say Spence and William are here to answer questions, have discussion. We have intentionally not put a lot of guidelines on what this conversation is going to be about. I would say for the board's part and for my part, it's been a while since I was in a room with this much goodwill, this much mission-driven, this many mission-driven people. So I know everybody wants to talk to William, all right? So for that reason, the board is going to respectfully ask that we don't launch into the case for our own organization's specific needs today, but to have a good discussion, ask some good thought-provoking questions about the endowment with William. So with that, I'll quit talking. I will make an announcement about other programs at the end today, but for now, Spence Broadhurst, William Buster, y'all take charge.
Well, thank you. It's crystal clear. Y'all aren't here to hear me anymore, right? I see so many familiar faces. We've had presentations over the last year and a half, and y'all have heard me babble on, and the one thing I've been able to do for about a year is buy time. We're going, we just got to hire that CEO. We've got to get that done. So I wasn't really buying time, but yeah, I was. But most of you know, I'm going to give you 3 minutes on on how we got here. I'm going to cram what many of you have heard in 2 hours into 3 minutes on the endowment of how we got here. Then I am going to turn over to William Buster, who and I'll tell you again in a minute how proud we are to have him on our team. But the new Hanover Community Endowment was formed about a year and a half ago in October of 20 from the agreement to sell the Hanover Regional Medical Center to Novant Health. And it was a tri-party agreement between the county, the Hanover Regional Medical Center, and Novant, and it created an asset purchase agreement, which is 844 pages long. That is a public document you're welcome to read at your leisure. But within that document, they created the new Hanover Community Endowment that was going to be the recipient of most of the funds from the sale. The county kept a portion for different reasons that funded the endowment. And we were set up, and we are basically governed by that asset purchase agreement that created the endowment. The one thing, and if you get a chance to thank your current county commissioners and, this is my opinion, the past county commissioners, I would encourage you to do that, because I believe that their vision to do this with this money was so insightful, and it's going to be so impactful for generations to come. Whereas if they'd made a different decision and the money would have stayed political and would stay governmental, I think we may not have the exact same impact that I am confident that all of you are going to have in this community as we work together. So I would encourage you, because that was a hard thing to do. Now, one thing, many of you know that I spent a few years in public life, and one thing I learned is that elected officials rarely, if ever, give up power or money. And those county commissioners gave up both. They passed it all on to this endowment. So there's 13 board members, and we spent a year educating ourselves on what we're supposed to be doing, and we've gotten a lot of input and a lot of information. But the most important thing we need to do is to hire the right person. And as y'all know, it took us a year. It took us months and months and months. We had so many great applicants for this all over the country. We searched all over the country. And I could have taken 100 of them, probably more, and put the resumes in front of y'all, and y'all to go on thumbs up. We'd hire this person. But that connection, what we were looking for was the right person that could take the skill sets and the experience of philanthropy and connect with people in this room, this board, people in the county commission, city council, people in the areas where this money is going to make a difference and transform this community. And we found the right guy. And so with that, I'm going to introduce William Buster. He's got such, I won't go into his whole background. Trust me, we got the right guy. William.
Good morning.
Morning.
What y'all want to talk about? I'm pleased to be here. I've been on a whirlwind for the past 6 weeks, almost 2 months or so, and having one-on-one conversations, but I think this is the first time I had a chance to talk with some of the leaders that hopefully we'll be able to be partnering with in a very short time. I'll just talk a little bit about myself and a little bit about my vision, and then hopefully I'll answer some questions. I've been doing this being in philanthropy for about 22 years, 21, 22 years. I started a little foundation in Winston-Salem, the Babcock Foundation, and had an opportunity to work all across the Southeast. My passions, as I'll call them, were in the areas of rural development and food systems, food access, youth development, and really cut my teeth doing a lot of the work around land loss and working with farmers, small farmers, low resource farmers, and that led me to an opportunity to work for the Kellogg Foundation, where I went and led their rural work from across the country and had a chance to expand my knowledge of what was happening, not only in the southeastern United States, but in the Midwest, in the Plains areas, and in the Southwest United States, all in areas that, in Appalachia as well, all in areas that there's high need. And one of the things that I began to kind of to really hone my skills around is how do you use local resources to improve the condition of folks? Because in those areas, you don't get a lot of extra resources. People are not running to Hazard County, Kentucky to put money into those communities. And so I began to kind of work very localized and trying to understand how do you partner with people, how do you connect individuals to work together to improve their condition. That led me to an opportunity at the Kellogg Foundation to then go on and create their first place-based office. I was tasked with leading and creating the work that was happening in Kellogg in Louisiana and Mississippi. I got a chance to move back down south and do that work. In that area, I learned another lesson around disaster philanthropy, as we call it. I moved back down to Louisiana, right? Hurricane Katrina and Rita had happened a couple of years prior to that, a few years prior to that, but the lingering effects were still there. And so I had a chance to kind of go in and support and partner with folks around this issue, around how do you build back a community that was completely devastated. And I learned a lot in that space. And what I learned there primarily was, sadly, the government ain't coming to help you. But people have passions, and people have an understanding about how to help themselves. And so all you got to do is unleash that opportunity, which then led me to going to the St. David's Foundation in Austin, Texas, where I had a chance to really begin to understand healthcare and healthcare philanthropy. I've been doing public health and supporting a lot of that kind of work and around the social determinants, but I had a chance to really go in and understand what's happening with our healthcare system in the country, and what does philanthropy have to do with that, and how do you partner with hospitals and healthcare systems and providers on how you get them out of their hospitals and out of their offices and into the communities in which they live and work. And then ultimately that led to me back home. Just real quick about coming back home. So when I left North Carolina in 2007 to go to the Kellogg Foundation, it was always my intent to come back home. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to kind of live and work in other parts of the country. There's something special about the state. I can say that now. I've probably worked in 30+ states, lived in 5 or 6, and North Carolina is a special place. Well, let me take that back. Texas is a special place. I used to actually say, there's nothing compared to North Carolina and how much we love our state. Sorry, y'all, Texas, man, they are fanatical about their state. So, but that's the only difference there. But when the opportunity came to come back to North Carolina, I couldn't pass it up. The Dogwood Trust was forming, and interestingly enough, the folks from Dogwood had come out to Texas to learn about the St. David's Foundation, the exact same kind of foundation, partnering with HCA. Y'all made a good choice in not picking HCA. And we that they began probably their interview process to bring me back home about 2 years prior to when I came. So I didn't know that though. Coming here, coming back home, back to my family in Kannapolis was something that I'd always dreamed about, and then having the opportunity to then begin to kind of learn about what was beginning to kind of transform down here. I've told other people this: the field of philanthropy is small. We talk, we gossip, we do all this kind of stuff around, you know, what's happening, what's the latest. And there was this buzz about what was beginning to happen down here in New Hanover County, these conversations. So I knew about the negotiations, I'm sorry, Spence, I knew about the negotiations long before anybody told anyone. It just gets out there. And I heard about it because of HCA, they were interested. And so I watched, and I was very interested. And then when I started to see some of the language about what they wanted to do, and some of the values, equity, and most importantly, listening to community and hearing voice. I heard that a lot. And I got a little excited and submitted my name, and it's like, okay, well, you know, I'm sure everybody and their mama is gonna apply for this job. But let me just see and put my information out there. So I was excited to be tapped to come here and to be a part of this work. I can tell you, y'all, I've been around this place, I've been around this country. There's nothing like it anywhere else. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's no other organization like what we're trying to create here. And I'm excited and also terrified all at the same time. But it's a good scare. You know, it's one of those things that it heightens you. A little bit about my hope for this work. I see this as hopefully my last paying job. I'm just 51 years old, and I plan to be here until we stand this thing up and get it going. My daughter will be entering into the first grade, and so I at least I got 12 years. So she'll start this fall in the first grade, and what we have in front of us is an opportunity to be transformative. And I don't use that word loosely. When I say transformative, I literally mean how we operate in this community can substantively change how we interact with one another, how we provide resources for opportunities, how we change dynamics around issues that we've been fighting with and fighting around for over 100 years can change because of the way in which I envision us working. When you begin to kind of see us as an organization and the team that I hope to build begin to go out and do this work, you'll hear these words constantly: network, collaboration, partnership, community, voice. That's what you're going to constantly hear. You'll start to hear things like, you know, all the areas that we're focused in on: education, public health, social and health equity, community development, and public safety. You'll hear those things, and you'll begin to understand that we're going to be very technical and tactical on addressing those issues, but none of those things will be focused on without those words that I used before. I hope to attract and tap into some of the brightest minds. I just spoke, I was telling the board the other day, I just spoke at a conference in DC last week, and it was a conference of African-American leaders in philanthropy. And I created a buzz. People were talking about, well, you know, when are you gonna start to hire? When are you gonna open up the doors? And I've been doing that on online kind of speeches and talking with folks all around the country, creating this understanding that there's going to be something different here, and you better watch out, and you should be open to partnering with us. So one of the things I hope to do is attract resources into the community, both federal and state and private philanthropy. I want to have people understand that there is something to invest in around change. It is not, and not that there's anything wrong with programs, but I'm telling you, we're going to change conditions. That is my hope. I spoke to a group of folks last night, and I told them that I'm not a huge fan of programs, and I don't mean in a way that you know, anything negative, but what I'm talking about is supporting work that transforms and changes the condition from one condition to to another condition. And I hope that we will be able to kind of work together to tackle some of these substantive issues over the next few years. And I say years, I mean years. You know, we're going to start rolling out resources this fall, but what we do this fall, just honestly, is going to be pretty responsive. We haven't done any of our strategic planning yet. We haven't done the work around understanding what is it that we're actually trying to change. I give an example that just in public education, right? So early childhood education. And just in that space alone, I can tell you 5 different things that you can work on. And all of those things are very important. But that's just one leg of one pillar, one aspect of the work that we got to do. And so what we have to do as a board is begin to understand all of those things. You know, what can we do in all these areas? What are we going to begin to kind of focus in? What is it, you know, what do we need? What are the resources that we need as far as staffing to do those things? But it's going to take us a little bit of time to get this thing running the way I want to see it going, and then some years after that before we begin to kind of see some change. I hope, you know, hopefully there's some things that we can tackle immediately. Last night I heard, I got an earful. A couple folks were in that room last night, and folks let me know about the issue around mold and public housing. And you know, there are things that we can immediately do. And I got pretty excited listening to folks last night. But withstanding, notwithstanding, we're going to take our time to understand what are the needs of our community, and we're going to listen in a way that hopefully people will understand that they can be patient with us as we move this work forward. I've said a lot of nothing over the last couple of minutes. I really want to get, you know, substantive. I can talk about any topic that you want to bring up, ask questions. The answer about grants right now is no, so go ahead. You know, you can get that out the way. But anything else, I'd love to answer any questions that you have. So I'll shut up and ask the questions.
So real quick, and when you ask a question, if you just stand up and remind us all who you are, who you represent. With that said, I'll start us off with the first question. Again, David Howe, I'm with the American Red Cross, and William, could you talk to us a little bit more when you say collaboration?
Yeah.
I love it, first of all, but can you give us a bit more as far as your vision of what collaboration means in this community between organizations, between individuals?
Yeah. So I have a question always that I ask people when I'm talking about real substantive issues. The couple questions I ask. One, where is it a problem? And then 2, who is it a problem for? Then 3, who else is working on that issue? That's my key issue. That's my key question. And when I ask that question, I'm listening for a couple of things. One, truly your understanding of what the issue is. And then 2, whether or not you understand that you can't do that work by yourself. So when I talk about collaboration, I mean literally, are you working with people that have identified that same issue that you're working on, and are you working with them in a way that you're moving towards a solution? You know, there are things that we can be supporting that are immediate needs together. That's fine. But if you're going to be talking to us about saying, hey, this issue that we're working on is this big and it's affecting this many people in our community, I'm going to push towards saying, okay, well, what are y'all going to do about it? You and the other organizations that exist. And I don't say that in a way that's, you know, I don't believe in shotgun marriages. That just doesn't work. But what I'm saying, when I say collaboration, I'm acknowledging that we will do whatever we need to do by way of resources. Collaboration is not cheap, and it's not easy. And so, you know, my hope is to engage consultants and thought partners around how do you support nonprofit leaders and governmental leaders to think and act collectively on issues. And so we plan to put resources behind that. So you'll hear you'll hear me talk a lot about capacity building and network support, those kinds of things. And so we'll be able to kind of support in real ways the needs that you have around how to work together and how do you create kind of common vision to move forward together. Yes, I see right here that we'll come.
I'm Kitty Ortiz, Cape Fear Museum. I'm wondering, William, if you have met in any substantial way with the Cape Fear Collective folks?
I've had a few conversations. I was at their building last night. That's where the meeting was.
Okay.
My hope is to explore further how we can work with them on a few issues, especially around data collection and data access. So I saw the name and then we'll come right here.
You hinted earlier about differentiating programs from informative work. Can you define what you mean by programs?
Yeah. And when I say this, please, I am not saying that I don't value these. But I come out of youth development, right? Actually, my first job in nonprofit was to create a rites of passage program for young men, after-school program, and working in schools. So when you think about programs, it's those things that are transactional. There's a need, right? Kids don't have anywhere to go. I have a building. I have somebody that can teach them art and music and sports, and it's worthwhile. It gets young people out of a condition of not having something to do, so they go and not do some other negative things. And so you create a space that gives a service that's a transaction to someone. And so when I say programs, it's literally those things that are immediate needs, feeding programs, after-school programs, sports programs, those kinds of things that are fulfilling a need. But if I were to ask you ultimately what happens because of that, what condition will change because of it, there's not a one-to-one correlation between me going to an after-school program and me ultimately being successful in life. I think there's data that talks about that, but unless you say explicitly, this program will cause young people in our community to go on and do X, Y, or Z, that to me is a little bit more transactional. So I'll say this, and it's absolutely critical that I want people to understand this. We will have to support programs. There's no way getting around that for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to take a while for us to get used to tackling big issues collectively. I know some of you are doing it, but doing it collectively, that's going to take some time. Two, there is need. There's immediate need in our community, and you cannot turn a blind eye to the need that exists. And then three, we got a lot of money to give away. So it's going to take us a while, and we're going to have to support a lot of work along the way to get to that point. So programs are going to be kind of crucial to what we support, at least at the very beginning. I saw this young woman right here, and then we'll come.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm Amy Jeffrey. I'm the Interim Executive Director at Dream Center for Arts Education. We're a creative youth development program. We're located in the Northside neighborhood, which was decimated with the 1898 coup d'etat. I got very excited listening to you talk about helping communities to build back. I'm just wondering what the mechanism might be that you would put in place if you were to see well-intentioned leaders, elected officials, people in power, not steering the ship towards what the residents need and want.
So I have some other questions I ask when people, and I ain't gonna cause you to stand up. I'll ask folks who sent you, and how do I know they sent you? And if you can't take me to the community and have a conversation with the folks that sent you, then we probably don't have much to talk about. And so my encouragement to folks who are going to say, but the need is great and I'm coming here because the people need this, and I'm like, well, let's go ask them. Let's go figure out what they need. And because there's no better way to understand what's happening to ask the person with the most affected issue. Last night there was a young man there from high school. He's the first high school student I've spoke to since I've been here. And I've been looking for a high school student. I see him on the streets, but I've been looking for ways to engage young people because I hear so many people talking about young people in this community. I ain't heard young people say a word about what actually is happening to them.
I got a whole slew of them for you.
I look forward to talking with a group of young folks because I can tell you as a person who really began just the nonprofit sector back in the early 90s working with young people, I'm always amazed when they give you these mind-bending solutions to stuff that we've been working on for decades, and it's like, yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking to that. So when I start to hear people talk about what the issue is, I'm going to look for who's behind you and what they sent you.
Thank you.
Yes. So right here, yes.
Lee Johnson with Planned Parenthood. You have an amazing group of individuals in this room who have been doing this work in this community, some of us for a very long time. What is it that you anticipate needing from us?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I have a young woman right, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Back in the, yes, you, no, behind you. Yes.
Oh, I'm Margie Harris, I'm the PR director here.
So Margie came up to me at the Power Breakfast, right? I do remember that, Margie. And she told me that she was with the Harrelson Center, it's not a campus of nonprofits. And I literally said, okay, I need to talk to you for a second. Because I believe that I have a plan, y'all. And my plan is that every nonprofit in this community is gonna create something collectively together. We're gonna do something. I don't know what that something is yet, but I am going to hopefully ask all of you, and it may be segments of you, those of you who are focused on specific issues. But I will at some point say, hey, let's try, name it. And everyone has to come, and your board chair has to be there, and your lead thought partner on your team has to be there, and let's figure to do something out together collectively. And so I don't know what that thing is yet, but I think hopefully the Harrelson Center and folks who work together will be able to kind of partner with me. So I envision being able to say, we're gonna get behind I hate using these words, collective impact approach. I don't like that. I was there when the Stanford folks started that stuff, 20 years ago. So, but without using that word, working together in a way that's intentional, that's supported, that tracks towards a specific topic and a specific achievable goal. And I will want to convene folks and support folks in moving that kind of work forward. So I have some thoughts on that. Yes.
Hi, I'm Carmen Schroner, and I'm the founder and CEO of Autoridad Inc., okay, for single moms. What kind of advice would you give somebody like me who came from another country, Costa Rica, okay, is passionate about this country, okay? I want to teach single moms, okay, how to get ahead in this country, because when I go and visit the single moms and they're really without no furniture, I say, but you live in the United States of America. So I teach them how to go from one step. First of all, work. We have to work, obviously, right? And then all kinds of stuff that I work with the community. We do fundraising, and people really like it. The fact that I'm teaching these women to get ahead, and now we have one lady who actually is gonna own his own home. So this is my passion. I want to help Americans because there's no way. We have a lot of resources, but I want to do it as hands-on. So what kind of advice would you give me?
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. So when I start to think about folks who want to actually solve some of the problems, I always talk about being proximate. My good friend Brian Stevenson, I don't know if any of you know Brian Stevenson, but Brian works on death row cases. And there's a movie about him, Just Mercy. And Brian and I gave him his first grant some years ago. And Brian talks about being proximate. And the only way to solve a problem is getting next to the person with the problem. Not just asking them about the problem, but experiencing it as best as you can with it. And so when I think about folks who want to transform someone's life who is living the condition, I think what you're doing is exactly what you have to do, which is getting next to the person. And then helping them navigate. So when I think about taking that approach, oftentimes what people need most, in this case single moms, is to understand, so what do I do next? And okay, so what do I do next after that? And the issues that they face may seem very small for us. I'll give you an example. There was, I was supporting a body of work around getting young people, primarily young parents, into community college. And this was in New Orleans. And we were gonna put all this money into this community college program, go to community college for free. The first year, we had only about a 40% uptake of people who would do it. And we did some analysis. Kellogg, they're really smart. We like to analyze everything. And so we began to kind of crunch the data, and it didn't make any sense until we start to kind of have conversations with actually folks who sent people out to go talk to the people who had dropped out. And what we found was the issues that people were facing for dropping out were things like, literally someone said, I had a flat tire and I just couldn't get there that day, and I just said, forget it, I can't do this. My mom told me she was gonna come and get my child, and my mom called me and said she wasn't gonna do it, and I just gave up. I told my boss that I needed an hour to go and study for class, and they told me that if I didn't come to work, I was gonna lose my job. These very things that probably most of us in this room could navigate or know someone to navigate. But these folks didn't have anyone to help them navigate. And so programs and opportunities to help people understand the next thing you do, that doesn't mean that your life is falling apart. That normally what you would do is just deal with that next issue. So having organizations that help people navigate, I think is critical. And so it's a very slow process, I think, that just it'll be mom to mom. Maybe that's the name of the program. And you just begin to kind of work and help people navigate case by case. So, but it may take a while to just get started to scale. But I don't think that should, if you help 5 mothers in a year, that's substantive, in my opinion. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kim Nelson, community advocate. We talked about changing conditions. But changing conditions takes time, takes resources, and takes courage. You clearly have the money to be able to put the resources in place. Are you, one, committed to the time that it takes? Because we get incredibly focused on immediate impact, being able to see something right here, right now, and it often prevents us from looking to the future and saying, I'm going to take this thing that takes more time, but in the long run, it's going, it's what's making the baby fall in the water down the river. And do you all have the courage? Because there's an incredible amount of pressure on organizations to see that immediate, that something immediate that's there.
Yeah. So the time, right? One of the things I hope to bring, and maybe it already exists, but I want to make sure that it's a part of our organization that we're creating, is a balance between what I call situational impact opportunities, things that happen right now, versus things that are that culminate into the change that we ultimately were trying to do. And so I want to bring a level of rigor into understanding how do you connect that moment that starts with that first meeting to every step along the way that gets you ultimately to the opportunity that you hopefully want to create change. And all the things that are going to happen that deter you in the midst of that as well. So but there's a way in which you can plan for that. I've seen it, I've done it. You can be intentional about saying, from our first meeting here to 7 years from now, we hope to, along the way, create these several impacts or these several outcomes. We're going to track them. We're going to revisit. We're going to modify. We're going to change. But creating a way in which you are actually allowing yourself that opportunity to grow, and don't be afraid to say, we think this is going to take us 7 years, 10 years. So the luxury that we have that other communities don't have is that, one, we're not going anywhere, and so we will have the time and the patience. As long as, you know, as long as I can convince my board and help them understand where we're headed, I think we'll have the time. Courage, right? So, you know, I said this last night, and it's always, to me, it's a funny statement, but that statement Mike Tyson said that everyone has a plan until they get punched. That's true. It's what happens after the punch lands is what helps me to understand. And so when we talk about having the courage, it really is about understanding that something negative is going to happen to the thing you're trying to do. It's just going to happen. And preparing for that. I am a geek when it comes to network analysis, right? I've done all this research on how do you leverage networks, and it comes out of the field of network analysis, out of computing. But there's the social network analysis stuff, and so I've been studying this for a number of years. And one of the things that comes out of that space is understanding that if you don't recognize not only all the things in the community or the individuals, because that's the thing we try to do, we try to say organizations. No, it's people. Understanding the people that help things happen, but most importantly, understanding who prevents things from happening in your community. And so I don't have it yet, but at some point when we have an office and you'll come to my office, you'll probably see me have like a little spreadsheet with names on it. And because I'll be coming to some of you and asking, not only who makes things happen, but who stops stuff in this community. And what you do with that, because you have to be intentional about it. This is about the courage thing, is that you understand how they stop things, right? And not to say that people are bad or want bad things to happen, but you have to understand how do you reach that person that always is skeptical about what needs to happen, and how do you either bring them in the fold, or how do you make sure that they stay apart from the work that you're trying to do? So I'm pretty slick about that stuff, but courage is understanding that you're going to receive opposition, and understanding how you plan for opposition, and either pull it into the work that you're doing, or figure out how you stand as a collective. That's why collaboration is so important to move that work forward. So I saw this your name, and then we'll come back up front right here, and then right over here. Yeah. Yes.
Sarah Daniels, Director of Keno at UNCW. So I'm curious about taking this framing of creating change within our community and the resources the endowment brings to individual nonprofits and enhancing collaboration. I'm thinking about taking that to the higher social level of change, which is how do we create an endowment that is that kind of philanthropy work? Because when I see we're trying to create change in our community, we're up against extreme economic inequality that's embedded in federal policies. We're up against institutionalized racism that's embedded in the fabric of our country. And so if we're coming up against those things, what we do here is limited by our influence at the national level. So I want to know your vision for creating an endowment that creates change in the philanthropic sector.
Yes. I'm the anti-philanthropist, right? So my friends see me coming, they, damn it, here comes Buster. I don't hide from the realities that I'm a capitalist, right? If I was to say that I'm not, then I shouldn't have the job that I have, right? The very thing that I do is predicated on making money out of a market that then you take those resources back into the community. And so what we're trying to create here is a institution, right? Only institutions are capable of helping to create change. Not organizations, not individuals, institutions. And what I hope to create is a way, an institution that engages philanthropy in a way that says it takes time, because that's the thing, I meant to say this earlier. Philanthropy gets bored very easily. And that's why I say I'm the anti-philanthropist. That to me, I learned, there was a matriarch of the Babcock family, Katie Montcastle, who y'all may know her daughter, Mary Montcastle, who helped start self-help out of Durham. And Katie would talk to me about She's passed on now, but Katie would talk to me about stuff they were doing in the 70s. And she would always say, but we stopped it, and I don't know why we stopped it. And I began to kind of understand that that's what philanthropy does. They start stuff that's really smart. Kellogg was really good at this. Oh man, we created a change, and then we would just stop doing it. And so I hope to create an organization that says we understand from the beginning that it takes time to create the change. And so when we engage other philanthropy, they're going to have to understand that that's what we want to do as well. And so, but something real quick to something you said, and I'll go, and I know we're running out of time, but I used to work at the federal level a lot. You know, I worked on food policy and the farm bill and all that kind of stuff. And I got pretty jaded about that stuff. It's pretty broken. But what I began to understand is that change is local. The power of change, the unit of change, is city and county. And there's a lot that you can do, notwithstanding federal government and state government, that ultimately you can create in your own space. Now, ultimately, if you're doing something that's going to meet up against that, you have to understand how you navigate those things. I've worked with probably every federal agency and have partnered with and leveraged grant dollars from every federal agency. And so I intend to do more of that here in this community, utilizing federal resources, but not in a way that that makes us bogged down by what happens out of DC. So just a real quick thought on that. How much time do you have?
A few more.
Oh, all right. Right here, and then here, and then right here.
Hi, I'm Laura McKenzie. I'm the Executive Director of Cape Fear Habitat. And my question is, I think we love the idea of collective impact. And then when you get to that point where we start talking about funding, everyone kind of retreats back into their silos. So I guess what we have at Kino and a group of executive directors together, we were talking about the endowment's interest in, if we start with a comprehensive solution and we have multi-organizations that can kind of make a case for how that comprehensive solution really could create that collective impact. Sort of what are your thoughts on that, and what do you think the endowment's interest in that is?
High interest. A couple questions I'll ask on that. I won't be asking all these questions. I hope to have staff to do a lot of this, but we'll be influenced by my vision of this. Is who minds it day to day? That'll be my first question. Because your organization has a thing that it already does. This new thing is something different. It's something added on to it. And so if there is, again, I hate the collective impact language, but the backbone organization kind of thing. But there has to be an organization or someone that minds it every single day. Collaboration, that when I talk about that it's expensive, it is not just about goodwill between organizations. It's about coordination and leveraging the resources that are inside that organization. It's about helping that organization know that it has to actually run differently, because now you have partners that you actually are accountable to that don't sit on your board. How do you do that? And so you need resources to understand what changes needs to happen inside your organization to do that. Who's supporting the collective, the minding of the work that happens day to day. And I would say that we will be very interested in supporting that work in a significant way. Yes.
Hello again, Jenna Worth with Voyage. So my question is, I'm hearing a lot about what you're valuing in terms of transformative change and also that bottom-up approach of listening to the needs from the people who are experiencing those needs themselves. And so Voyage has been around for a while. We're focused on underserved populations, specifically connecting youth with pathways to success. In doing so, we try to empower leaders from that community who understand those needs, that are already doing the work to address those needs, to become their own nonprofit organizations, to partner with those. And so one of the barriers I'm finding that these individual leaders in the communities are facing is that they don't have the funding to be able to, capacity build and assess their data and their track record of their success. But in order to obtain funding, they have to prove that. And so it's like this cyclical thing. Yeah. So I'm wondering if the endowment will be interested
show me the uncommon partners. Right? I want to know those folks. I know people are doing work all across this community that have never gotten $1 for what they're doing. Somebody knows who they are, and I want to know who those organizations are. Now, I have a thing though. I have a balance between. I tell folks, everything that you want to do that's good doesn't need a nonprofit behind it. Right? So I've seen nonprofits created because that's what they think. People think that's what I'm supposed to do. Go get my 501c3 in it. If there are ways in which you can unleash people's passions without burdening them with creating a 501c3 around it, I would much rather support that kind of work. Let them do what they do, and if they need to get a fiscal sponsor, then let's do that. I actually want to, I don't know who has the capacity to do that, but I'm going to be looking to support anchor organizations that will unleash the potential of folks doing the day-to-day work so they don't have to go and create a 501c3. Because that's the other thing is, and I said this last night, now you'll hear me say this a lot too, because I mean this, and I am a true partner. So sometimes you might hear me say things that doesn't sound like I work for the endowment, but I do. I love what I do. But I'll tell people, every grant ain't a good grant. So I'm like the long shark. Do you really want this? Do you really want this money? Because if I give you this money, you're gonna owe me something. And so let's be clear about that. And so we don't have to tangle people up in helping them or making them create a nonprofit or 501c3. Then let's not make them do that. I have some ideas about supporting, building out the capacity of fiscal sponsorship organizations. And I want to do a lot of that so people can do the work that they're doing day to day. So if you are a fiscal sponsor organization or have the capacity, come see me in a few months.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
Oh, no problem. I'm Katie Crosby, Office of the Arts at UNCW, but I'm also here representing NC Project Lead Us on the board there. And a huge advocate for the arts. So my question is, I'm sure you're familiar with creative placemaking or cross-sector initiatives. Would the foundation be interested in funding initiatives that combine artists with other sectors like education, health, community development to come up with more creative solutions for our community?
I will start. We're gonna, once we have an opportunity to really dive deep into our strategic direction and planning, one of the things that I want to be clear is that we're not gonna be prescriptive about the change. We'll have some things that we want to achieve, but how you achieve it, who am I to tell you how to do that? And if there's some innovative opportunities around utilizing the arts to create change, the kind of change that we're talking about. But in my undergrad years, I'm a historian by training, right? And so my first job in undergrad was working in the museum. I'm a passionate person when it comes to museums. I went to the Cameron the first few weeks I was here and had a chance to kind of learn. And I'm actually volunteering personally there. So I want to utilize arts in ways that a personal passion of mine, that unleashes that right side of the brain to help people kind of figure out how to do the work differently. So, but if there's opportunities for transformative opportunities around utilizing arts to create change, I'd love to see that kind of stuff. So, yes.
One of the, I'm wondering about the NC Project Lead. One of the things I would like for you to do is have a conversation with coaches, more the high school level and the community level, because personally I know the kind of work that they do for inner city kids. From me working with them, with my brother, who's in the same class with Michael Jordan, and getting kids in college, and his coach was at Hanover and still in his life today, because my mother was sick at that time, and so I know the kinds of things that coaches take kids to colleges, would do their programs, community. So that is a opportunity for them to touch kids in this community. They have coordinated parents, organizations to work with them to have taken kids to college. My son is at University of Virginia education because of a coach. So if you have an opportunity to talk to local coaches and community coaches, Snoop Dogg was, with the Property Brothers, was renovating someone's home. And it was a coach that he got to coach his football team in Compton, which you know is a difficult area. And at the end of the show, these young men came back who had, because of this coach in that community, they were able, maybe about 15 of them now play for NFL, some of them in college. So if you get an opportunity to talk to the coaches.
Get the coaches together. Don't make me go find them. Yes.
Real quick, I think one more question, and then if you could all please stick around for just a few minutes for a couple of announcements and some more program information. Thanks so much.
Yes, right here.
I'm Barbara Jenkins, and I'm the CEO of the YWCA. Could you address a little bit about your staff and how your staff is going to interact with the community?
Yeah, as soon as I get some. The way I envision the staff operating, I've said this to past staffs, right? If I see you a lot, then I'm gonna start to ask what you're doing. I envision having staff that are highly engaged. We may not even call them program officers. I actually prefer calling them network officers. To work for this organization, those who will have some level of content expertise, you have to have what I call a vertical integration of your talents. You have to be able to understand, one, intimately how to create change based upon your expertise. Then two, you have to have something that I can't teach, which is networking and relationship ability. You have to be able to talk to absolutely anyone about the topic that you're an expert in and navigate in that. And then three, you have to be able to understand how do you leverage other resources to bring it into that work. And so you'll have our staff who view themselves as a partner, a true partner in that work, that are going to help walk with you towards a solution and helping you figure out other resources to bring into that work, but also bringing a level of expertise and knowledge about the topic themselves into that. And so that's my vision for the kind of staff. They'll be working hand in hand quite a bit. All right. Yes.
Type of positions for your networking?
Say that one more time.
The type of positions for your networking staff?
Right now, I can envision, think of typical foundation staffing, like program officer, program associates, those kinds of things. But when we start that, I actually want to go through the strategic planning process first before I start to create that kind of staffing model. But I'm pretty sure that we'll have those kind of folks. In what areas, I'm not sure yet, but we will have that staff. All right. Thank you.
I was legitimately clearing my throat. I wasn't trying to. Hey, I want to say a word real quick about AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals. We put this together. We want to see you guys more. I don't know any other way to put that. We've heard William say earlier, we're going to have a meeting where everybody comes together collectively with your decision maker and your board chair, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of us are here right now. We're doing a lot of work from the program side to have more meetings that are more impactful, where we can sit together as a group and start the change that we're talking about. I have a college professor's history, and I will say, if you're not in the room, you're missing out. If you're not in the room, you're not being present, and we can't make change without that. So thanks, everybody. That was my spiel. If you're not a member, talk to us about it. We'd love to see you more and more often. And I'll hand it to Lauren and anybody else who has announcements. Thanks. You can mention it.
Okay. So thank you all again for coming. Next month's meeting
is going to be special. It's going to be right back here. It is actually going to be on a Friday, June 10th, and we're bringing in Brian Saber. He has written several books, one called Asking Matters and a most recent one called Asking Styles. So it will be like a half-day training. We'll have breakfast, coffee, of course, and some snacks. The networking will be from 8:30 to 9, program 9 to 1. All that information is on our website, which is capefeargives.org. There is a registration, and you do get a discount if you are a member, so go ahead and sign up for those memberships. I think that's all that I have. Do we have any communication updates or anything like that? Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. And once again, if you have questions about membership or programs or anything, please see myself or one of our board members.